Hey guys, welcome to Prep Course series on preparation for verbal ability for CAT. Today we're going to be continuing with the verbal ability sections for sentence correction and we will be focusing on modifiers, a very important topic. Let's go. Now, this session on modifiers, well, theoretically, yes, this is a CLAT class, but this is going to apply to pretty much all English entrance exams wherever it's necessary. GMAT, CAT, CLAT, because, well, English is English. The English they're testing is pretty much the same. And one thing to keep in mind is they're not even testing your theory. So, a few of the terms you're going to read in this, you're going to learn about in this session, such as the word modifiers itself. This is a word I'd never even heard till I took TOEFL, I think in 2000. Never mind, very long ago. So this is a term they're never going to ask you. Nobody's ever going to ask you what is a modifier, what is a dangling modifier, what is a misplaced modifier. So keep in mind as you're going through this session that you are not being tested on the theory of this. However, these are very useful concepts to know for the CLAT exam obviously, but even for other entrance exams that you might take later in your post-graduation, and generally to have much better English reading and writing and to improve your comprehension. This is an important session also because modifiers are one area where they can really confuse you by making the sentence longer and longer. They can keep adding phrases to make the sentence longer, to complicate it. It's your job to actually understand what modifiers can be eliminated to get to the core of the sentence. So this session, more than anything else, is going to teach you how to simplify and break down sentences into their bare minimum. So let's start. So what is a modifier? It's any phrase or a word that describes another part of the sentence. So modify is another word for describe in this case. So for example, adjectives modify nouns and pronouns. So when you say this is a book, subject, verb, object, I hope you've gone through the parts of speech class. Subject, verb, object. This is a book. Now if you want to say something more about the book, you'll say this is a good book. Good is an adjective. An adjective is something that describes a noun or a pronoun. So here the word good is modifying the word book. Adverbs are also modifiers in a way. Adverbs modify verbs, they modify other adverbs, and they modify adjectives. That sounds complicated. Let's take examples. So you could say he writes, subject and verb. That's a perfectly valid sentence. How does he write? He writes well. The word well here is describing the act of writing. It's an adverb that is modifying the verb writes. So let's say you now know he writes well. How well does he write? So how well, now not how does he write, how well does he write? You're asking for more information now on the adverb itself. So if you say he writes really well, you're providing more information about the adverb. So an adverb can actually modify another adverb. And this is a chain, right? He writes really well. He writes really well. Just keep going. And of course, you can change the word. He writes really fantastically, brilliantly well. Now, let's take the last example here. This is a really good book. So you've said this is the good book. How good? So again, now how good is you're trying to add more information about how good it is, about the adjective here. So when you say this is a really good book, you're essentially adding more information about the adjective. You're modifying the adjective here. Therefore, adverbs can modify adjectives. And again, the same thing applies. This is a really good book. This is a really fantastically well written book. So that's the crux of what adjectives and adverbs are. Now, why do modifiers get tricky? Because modifiers And in the context we're talking about, modifiers are phrases. And phrases is where the sentences get longer and longer and longer. So you could say the book had been recommended by him. It's a valid sentence, but immediately you're going to jump up and ask, the book? What book? Right. So then you say the book that I read last had been recommended by him. So that I read last is actually adding more information about the book. It's acting like an adjective, but it's a phrase. This is the table, valid sentence. Sounds incomplete. You're immediately going to jump up and ask, what table? This is the table. What table are you talking about? If you'd said this is a table, okay. But this is the table that I was telling you about. So here, that I was telling you about is a phrase that's adding more information about the table. It's another phrase that is acting as an adjective. Walking down the road, I saw my friend. When did I see my friend? I'm providing more context. So basically, I'm adding a description about other elements in the sentence. That essentially is a modifier as a phrase. Again, why is that tricky? Because A, modifiers can be really, really, really long. And that's 3 adjectives in a chain. Adverbs. Did I say adjectives? I meant adverbs. And you can add as many modifiers as you want. 5, 6, 7. Each of them individually is not complicated at all. But put together, your sentence has become so long that it's unwieldy, that it's actually hard to know what the crux of the sentence actually is now. It's hard to break it down to the subject, verb, object format. And that is what we're doing in this lesson, figuring out how to identify modifiers and how to simplify the sentence. So for example, she worked hard is a sentence. It's a valid sentence. In fact, she worked is a valid sentence. Now let's keep adding more information. She worked hard. She worked hard on what? She worked hard to get a job. That's a modifier right there, to get a job. What kind of job? A job that would help her realize her dreams. What were her dreams? Dreams that she had had since she was 12. When did she do all this? When she was left to fend for herself. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 modifier phrases right there. And the sentence has gone from 3 words to, well, very many. So that's why modifiers are really, really important to know. And that's why that's how they become tricky. Because you can keep adding them. So there's no errors in that sentence. It's perfectly valid. Let's look at this one. Looking to buy fireworks without running into the police. The store was closed by the time he got there. This is now getting into the territory of understanding what modifier errors are. Why do modifiers also get complicated? Because sometimes it's very hard to tell what they're referring to. So if it's a single word, you know where to place it. This is a good book. You wouldn't say this good is a book or good this is a book. But with modifier phrases, that actually becomes a problem. So if you look at the sentence, looking to buy fireworks without running into the police, what is the focus of this modifier? What is this modifier actually talking about? What is it referring to? Who or what was looking to buy fireworks without running into the police? It's a person, right? Is there any person mentioned in the sentence? You have a hint. There's a he. So there is a pronoun. So from the context of the sentence, it seems like he was looking to buy fireworks without running into the police. Yes. Having said that, where is the modifier placed in the sentence? Next to the store. Was the store looking to buy fireworks without running into the police? Obviously not. We know that from context. Stores don't walk. Hopefully not. It's 2020, you never know. But you need to put the modifier right next to what it is modifying. Otherwise, sentences get complicated. Here, it's obvious. You can say, dude, it's so obvious that a store cannot be looking to buy fireworks. What if there were two people involved? Let's say there's Ram and Sham, both of whom are mentioned in a sentence. You could get confused about whom that particular phrase is referring to. So just follow the rule, be very clear on this, figure out the focus of the modifier and put the modifier next to its focus. Now here's a trickier one. Left by the side of the road, his phone's battery was dead. Now the question is, the basic sentence is his phone's battery was dead and the modifier is left by the side of the road. Who or what was left by the side of the road? Was he left by the side of the road? Was the phone left by the side of the road? Or was the battery in the phone left by the side of the road? There are three possible focuses. I just realized I don't actually know the plural of focus. Foci? Left, yeah, we don't, let's get back to the point. We don't actually know what is left by the side of the road. If you look at the sentence, what is the subject of the sentence? Not the phone, not he. The subject is the battery. The battery was dead. Therefore, you would assume that the battery was left by the side of the road. In this case, because the modifier is right next to the battery. The phone is not actually being the phone is being alluded to, but the phone is not the subject of the sentence. Now, was the battery left by the side of the road? Was it taken out of the phone? It could be. But from context, it seems like either the phone was left by the side of the road or he was. Most likely the phone. Therefore, the sentence is wrong. So you need to be very, very clear what the focus is and you need to put the modifier next to the focus or the focus next to the modifier. So let's look at some examples. Misplaced modifiers. Once again, I will reiterate, nobody is ever going to ask you what is a misplaced modifier. This is just stuff you need to understand. You don't need to memorize the definitions themselves. So let's take an example here. Bought with a lot of hard-earned money, he really needed to take better care of the house. So the sentence here is he really needed to take better care of the house. The modifier is bought with a lot of hard-earned money. What was bought with a lot of hard-earned money? The house or he? Obviously the house, right, in this context. The problem is that the focus of the modifier is way at the other end of the sentence. So you need to fix this. How? By either moving the modifier next to its focus or by moving the focus of the modifier next to the modifier. So if we try moving the focus, what happens to the sentence? Bought with a lot of hard-earned money, the house really needed to be taken better care of by him. Passive voice sounds really bad, sounds clunky, sounds complicated. How do you simplify this? You move the modifier next to its subject. He really needed to take better care of the house which he had bought with a lot of hard-earned money. Another example, capable of speeds of up to 200 kilometers an hour, Ford is betting big on its latest release for the Indian market. So what exactly is capable of speeds of up to 200 kilometers an hour? Is it the company? Companies can't run, I would hope. Or is it the car? The latest release being referred to. It's the car, right? The problem is the modifier is right next to Ford. So how do you correct that? Again, by changing things around. Ford is betting big on its latest release for the Indian market. A car capable of speeds up to 200 kilometers an hour. So basically a misplaced modifier is when the subject of the sentence is in the sentence. The subject of the modifier is in the sentence, but is very far away from the modifier. The modifier is actually next to something else, another noun or pronoun, which it could be describing, but it doesn't fit from the context. In the second category, dangling modifiers, basically the subject of the sentence of the modifier is alluded to in the sentence. The focus of the modifier is referred to in the sentence but actually isn't present. For example, writing non-stop for 20 days. My third book is my fastest. The subject of the sentence is what? Is it me or is it my book? It's the book. But is the book writing non-stop for 20 days? No. I have been writing non-stop for 20 days. I am not even present in the sentence. It says my third book, not me or I. Books obviously cannot write. Another example, while walking down the street, her shoe broke. Was the shoe walking down the street? No, it wasn't. She was walking down the street. So what's the difference between misplaced and dangling modifiers? The focus of the modifier actually isn't present in this sentence. There is no she anywhere in the sentence. You need to, therefore your solution is also different. You need to plug the focus of the modifier into the sentence somewhere, and the simplest way is just to put it inside the modifier. So how do you actually solve modifier errors? You plug in the subject of the modifier, the focus of the modifier somewhere in the sentence. Either in the sentence somewhere, main sentence if it fits, or even inside the modifier if it fits. So in the second example, that's actually much easier. While she was walking down the street, her shoe broke. In the first case, again, you put the focus of the modifier inside the modifier, and you've actually moved the modifier around. So my third book, which I finished by writing non-stop for 20 days, is my fastest. The sentence is now much longer, but it doesn't make sense any other way. And the second one, her shoe broke while she was walking down the street, or while she was walking down the street, her shoe broke. It's the same thing. There's another kind, and this basically is where till now you could have thought that, look, context makes it so obvious what you're actually referring to. Now, context doesn't help, because your modifier could have one of two subjects and they both could be right. There is no way by looking at the sentence to tell what the modifier is referring to. The purpose of a sentence is to communicate an idea, a thought. This one completely fails it. This is just really, really poor English. He told me when he visited Delhi, we would go to India Gate. So now what exactly is happening here? What is happening when he visited Delhi? Did he tell me when he visited Delhi that we would go to India Gate at some point in the future? Or did he tell me at some point that we would go to India Gate when we visited Delhi? So the modifier here is when we visited Delhi. It's talking about a time frame. It's giving more information about a particular point of time. Is that point of time talking about when he told me something? Or is it talking about when we would go to India Gate? Because it's right in the middle and both would qualify, there is no way of telling. So how do you resolve this? The writer of the sentence basically needs to correct this by moving the modifier closer to one or the other. You possibly can't correct this without knowing the writer's intent. So if you get this kind of a problem in sentence correction, only one of the right answers will have an option which actually works. The others will make other mistakes. You can't have one right answer which says, when he visited Delhi, he told me that we would go to India Gate, and another option saying he told me that we would go to India Gate when he visited Delhi. Both of those are perfectly valid corrections for this. And without knowing the context, you actually can't pick one. Therefore, if you get this kind of a problem in sentence correction, they have to give you only one of these options as a potential correct answer. The reporter who covered the war recently won a Pulitzer. So the modifier here that we're talking about is who covered the war. Well, no, sorry. The modifier here that's actually confusing is recently. What happened recently? Did the reporter who covered the war recently win a Pulitzer, which is a journalism prize. So, did the prize happen recently, or was it a recent war? How do you correct this? Again, by adding more information, by giving the context, and by moving the modifier closer to one possible focus than another. So, for example, this is one solution. The reporter who covered the war won a Pulitzer recently. Or you could say the reporter who covered the recent war won a Pulitzer. You're actually moving the modifier closer to what the actual focus should be. Otherwise, if you leave it in the middle, there is no way for the reader to determine what you're talking about. So that's squinting. That's the three kinds of modifiers basically. What are the rules you need to follow? Very simply, place the modifier next to the subject of the modifier. If it's a single word, you wouldn't say intense, this is a novel, or good, this is a book. So why are you doing it if it's a phrase? Just don't. Just follow the same rule. So, another example, enraged at the loss of its habitat, the poacher was attacked by the bear. Who or what is enraged at the loss of its habitat? It should answer that question. You wouldn't be referring to a poacher as an it, you would be referring to a bear as an it. So, therefore, what do you do here? Simply move the modifier to the other side. The poacher was attacked by the bear, which was enraged at the loss of its habitat. Or because this sentence is in passive voice, convert it to active voice, simplified, and you can actually then leave the modifier where it is. The bear attacked the poacher, enraged at the loss of its habitat, the bear attacked the poacher. Shorter, simpler, sweeter, and correct. Keep in mind that a sentence with a bunch of modifiers might not even have a modifier error, they might all be correct. They could just be there to confuse you. And the error might be in some other aspect of the sentence. So, what do? You mentally remove all the modifiers. Just see, is there an error in this modifier? No. Chop it off for a second, leave it aside. Next one, error? No, leave it aside till you get to the basic subject, verb, object form of the sentence. This sounds like a really, really slow process, but A, you don't have a choice. You have to do this with complicated sentences. Otherwise, you're going to get them wrong. And this is not just a sentence correction problem. You will get this issue in reading comprehension. If they give you a tricky philosophy passage, let's say, of all my students till late, 90% of them used to just hate philosophy passages. Philosophy or classic literature. Why? Because they're discussing, A, there are long words involved, existentialism, moral objectivism. Even more than that, there are long sentences, complex sentences. Either because the author is trying to sound very fancy, or he just hasn't bothered to simplify it, or because the author, ancient philosophers, maybe they used to think that they're communicating to a high level audience who would fancy really, really long, boring, convoluted sentences. In any case, the purpose of communication is to communicate. The purpose of communication is to get the idea across as simply as possible. So when you're writing, please write in simple, short sentences. Your aim is to get the idea across. Your aim is not to sound fancy. So let's take a rather complicated example now. Read this for a couple of minutes while I will just stare at the camera. Let's read it aloud once together. In a rapidly warming world, the disappearance of conditions favoring the continued existence of large icebergs, once thought to be unbreakable monoliths, forming an inalienable part of the Arctic ecosystem, seems gone for good. That's a long one. How do you simplify this? Have you noticed that it's full of modifiers? So basically, like we discussed, identify a modifier, figure out what it's referring to, chop it off, leave it aside for a second. So, in a rapidly warming world, what is it referring to? Disappearance. So it's right next to its subject. So therefore, leave it aside. Let's move on. The disappearance of conditions favoring the continued existence of large icebergs. Find a modifier here? Yes. Favoring the continued existence of large icebergs. What is favoring the continued existence? These conditions or the disappearance, whatever. If it's conditions, then the modifier is right next to its subject. Leave it aside for a second. Now, once thought to be unbreakable monoliths. What was once thought to be unbreakable monoliths? Large icebergs, obviously not conditions. Therefore, it is right next to its subject. Leave it aside. Forming an inalienable part of the Arctic ecosystem. What is this referring to? Either monoliths or icebergs. Now, this is a tricky one. Why? Because the icebergs were thought to be unbreakable monoliths, and the icebergs were forming an inalienable part of the Arctic ecosystem. So they're both referring to icebergs. You have two modifiers here, both referring to icebergs. One is once thought to be unbreakable monoliths, one is forming an inalienable part of the Arctic ecosystem. So this is one problem we need to solve in the modifiers, but for now, we need to check that there are no other problems in the sentence. This is very, very important. In a long and complex sentence, if you find one error, don't just stop there. You need to keep looking for others. Especially in the trickier exams. CLAT, definitely they're testing your English from a communications perspective. They're going to give you complex examples. Even if you don't get sentence correction, your passages might be tricky. In GMAT, as you progress, GMAT is an adaptive exam. What does that mean? It means the better you're doing, the trickier and tougher the questions get. So, as you keep moving up the scale in the first few questions, the questions you get down the line are going to be very, very tricky. They won't be just having one problem. A lot of them will have 2 or 3 mistakes. So let's leave it aside for now and remove this modifier also. We'll come back to this. And we're left with the disappearance of conditions seems gone for good. We've removed all the modifiers now. And do you see a problem in this sentence now? The disappearance of conditions seems gone for good. Does that make sense? No. There's a double negative here. Either you should say the disappearance of conditions is here to stay, is now permanent, or the conditions seem gone for good. So, how do you correct this? In either of these ways. So, your answer options will either have the disappearance of conditions is now permanent, or seems permanent, or the conditions seem gone for good. You'll have to notice another word changing here. If we remove disappearance and we're just left with conditions, then seems has to change to seem because conditions is plural. And look at how far the subject is from the attached verb. Between conditions and seems, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There are 20 words in the middle. This is how they confuse you by adding modifiers. This is why this lesson is actually so important. So now we come back. So we've found this problem. We've solved it. Now we come back to the earlier problem we had. There are 2 modifiers talking about icebergs. Once thought to be unbreakable monoliths and forming an inalienable part of the Arctic ecosystem. How do we solve this problem? If we move the second modifier up, the first one goes down. So both modifiers need to refer to icebergs. So what do? Just add that word again. And the solution is, in a rapidly warming world, the conditions favoring the continued existence of large icebergs, once thought to be unbreakable monoliths, icebergs forming an inalienable part of the Arctic ecosystem, seem gone for good. Very complex. You're unlikely to get this question unless you're taking a GMAT exam and you're really good at it. Or the exam setters have assumed, whatever exam you're taking, that you will spend 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes on this. But the point remains the same. There are going to be sentences that they will make more complex by adding modifiers. What do you need to do? Pluck them out. Figure out errors in the modifiers, pluck them out, bring the sentence down to its base form. Subject, verb, object. The conditions seem gone for good. That is the sentence here. The conditions seem gone for good. And look how long and complex they made it. So that's how you solve modifier problems. Let's take some very quick examples. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, just drop us a comment and I will actually answer all your questions there. After weeks of running lessons and countless hours of practice, the full marathon was run successfully by my best friend. What's the modifier here? What is the subject verb object form? The full marathon was run by my best friend, and you've added successfully as an adverb in the middle. In any case, what is the first thing that you see? Active voice is preferred. This is passive voice. Was run successfully. So how do you actually go about solving this? First, this is in passive voice. Secondly, the bold part is what we're changing. The modifier, after weeks of running lessons and countless hours of practice, you can't change the position of that. It's not bold. What is this referring to? Who has taken weeks of running lessons and countless hours of practice? Not the marathon. My best friend. Therefore, you need to anyhow move the subject of the modifier close to the modifier, and you want to convert it to active voice. So both problems in this sentence will be solved by which option? Now, you don't even need, once you figured this out, you don't even need to read the full sentence in a few of the options. A is the same. B starts with the full marathon, was run. The run is not even a word, of course. B is out. C starts with the full marathon. It doesn't solve either problem. D, my best friend ran the full marathon in a success. You don't say in a success, you say successfully. E, my best friend ran the full marathon successfully. E is perfect. E is the right answer. Castling, a defensive chess maneuver and the only one in which two pieces are moved in the same turn. You've read this much of the sentence, you know which is the modifier already. A defensive chess maneuver, blah 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 blah, is a modifier describing castling. And only the last word, turn onwards, is in bold. That's what you're going to change. Are so named. Stop here. Remove the modifier. Castling are so named. See a problem? Castling is singular. So what have you eliminated? A, B and E are already gone. B for another reason, because there's a semicolon there. It doesn't fit. We'll discuss punctuation in another class. But yeah, you're left with C and E. C says is named that way because of the safety that is afforded to the king because of the move. Is named that way. Why? E says turn is so named because of the safety afforded to the king through the move. E is the right answer. Planning my winter vacation. There you have it. It's a modifier. A few hotels had decent rates for the week in February. I've got off. Problem? Are the hotels planning your winter vacation, my winter vacation? No. I am. Right. So how do you solve this problem? You can't move the modifier to another part of the sentence because only the modifier is in bold. So therefore you can't put I after the modifier, or can you? There are options there. Let's see. So A is the same. It leaves the modifier next to the hotels, which is wrong. B says, while planning my winter vacation, a few hotels had, stop reading here, it's the same problem. The hotels are not planning my winter vacation. Since I am planning my winter vacation, I found since. Did I find that the hotels had decent rates because I'm planning my vacation? No. C is wrong. Since doesn't fit here. Planning my winter vacation, I find. Okay, that's a new one. Let's carry on. I find a few hotels had decent rates. This now has 10 errors. So D is wrong. While planning my winter vacation, I found that a few hotels had decent rates. So what have we done here? We've just added the subject of the modifier next to it before the rest of the sentence. So E is the right answer. One last example. Astrophysicists, having studied planetary movements for the past few decades, now able to predict the movement of asteroids and meteors with reasonable accuracy. So what's the modifier here? Having studied blah 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 till decades. Chop it off for a second. So actually, first notice that is the modifier next to its focus. Who has studied planetary movements? The astrophysicists. So perfect, the focus of the modifier is right next to it. Now remove the modifier and let's look at the rest of the sentence to simplify it. Astrophysicists now able to predict. See a problem? There's no verb. It should be are or were. So first one is gone. B, astrophysicists, blah blah blah, no need to read the modifier. You need to save time. Astrophysicists and now able. No, still no verb. Astrophysicists are now able. Perfect. Let's also still go through D. Astrophysicists and are now able. No. C is the right answer. Astrophysicists are now able to predict the movement of asteroids, blah blah blah. And there's a modifier in between. So that's how you solve modifier problems. And it's gone blank, so let's stay here. This is basically the crux of modifiers. You should practice at least 50-60 examples. You'll get much faster. This is one of the most important lessons in grammar, in English grammar, in your verbal ability, for any test prep you're doing, whether it's CLAT, whether it's BBS, whether it's GMAT, whether it's CAT. This is very important because this is how they complicate your life, by adding more and more elements to sentences. And if you're strong at modifiers, you can just keep removing those elements and get to the crux of it. Anyhow, I hope you like this video. We really do need new subscribers. We're a new channel. And leave us comments. I'll be answering your questions. And we're going to leave some links to other chapters in the description. And of course, we have more videos coming up for the law section of CLAT, for the business section of BBS, for the general knowledge sections, for maths also. I will never teach maths. You saw me count 20 words in the middle of a sentence and I was nervous about that. But yeah, we have other more qualified teachers doing that, thanks. So yeah, subscribe to the channel and we'll be coming up with a lot more content soon. Hope this helped. Thanks guys. See you soon.